everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. I'm Jason Harmon.
Hey, I'm Doug Markham.
Doug Markham right here in the house, and Assistant Director Bobby Wilson.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Got Bobby for a whole show today.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
And we were discussing what we were going to talk about at the beginning of the show, and we're still going to discuss what we talk about here in a minute. All right? We'll come up with good stuff. Bobby's always a great guest. All right.
There's a lot going on out there.
Let's talk about some current event stuff before we get there. And happy anniversary to you.
Oh, thank you.
Wife Amy.
Yeah.
Had a big anniversary this week.
9 years. How about that?
It's a long time. Any outdoors?
Turkey season's winding down.
Yep, turkey season's over. I know that's a sad thing for a lot of sportsmen out there. They love the turkey season. And last I saw, there were 35,000 birds that had been harvested across the state.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked in a week or so, and that's a good year.
Yep.
Turkey hunters are having a good year.
They are.
Breaking that 30,000 number once again, so I like it because it means the birds are probably in pretty good shape. We know there's some issues here and there, but overall they're in great shape. And what I really like, it just shows the hunters' enthusiasm. They're getting out there, doing their thing.
I seen a gobbler yesterday. I was driving down the road and dragging the ground, flopping. I was like, man, I wish I was in the woods, not driving down the road.
They do that a lot, don't they?
Yeah.
And then go in the woods and it's empty for you.
You can't find them. I drew one across a field about 200-300 yards the other day, calling, and I was surprised he came over there, and then I spooked him away when I was trying to get my gun up. And didn't see him behind this fence row, and it was a fun hunt, and I had my son with me, so he enjoyed it. But
yeah, Bobby, did you have a good year?
Oh, typical. I got one, but I went several times and didn't get one, so typical.
But you got out.
I got one, yeah, and I got out. It's beautiful weather. Spring. This spring was good for the most part.
Well, it's I guess while we're talking about it ending, we need to let everyone know that in a couple of weeks the season's going to be set again for next year. Correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
So everything gets set now pretty much in one big meeting.
Yes, that's correct. It does. It's they previewed back in April to let everybody know what we're proposing and for everybody to think about it and for a chance for the public to comment on it, and it'll be proposed to be voted on at the May. Actually, we voted on the 24th. Be discussed on the 23rd of May. Up at Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee.
Going to travel a little bit.
Yes.
So folks that over that way, if you want to come see a commission meeting, come on over and watch it at Bryan College.
Bryan College, right.
So Chickamauga's going to be nearby, right?
Chickamauga's going to be nearby. I think there's going to be a presentation by the Ray County Commission, something to do with economics as a result of the tremendous fishing is related to the Florida bass stocking that we've done over the last 17 or 18 years.
Cool deal. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Is it okay if I go over a week early next week?
Yeah.
Sure.
We should take a fishing ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be cool over there. Also, I guess we need to let everybody know Free Fishing Day is really kind of around the corner.
June
About
10th.
a month, but boy, they're really loading up the website with information about Free Fishing Day events.
A lot of events out there.
Yeah, everywhere. And if you look on our Facebook page, you'll see a lot of events out there right on the Facebook. Go to our website. There's a page dedicated just to Free Fishing Day events. And I also want to remind everyone that, there's a lot of events for kids on Free Fishing Day. Free Fishing Day is for everybody.
Right.
So,
Free Fishing Day's for everybody, and then there's Free Fishing Week, right?
For kids.
For the kids.
Yeah, for the kids. And that's in the guide if you want to look that up. And remember, too, a lot of these events that are held, the agency goes in and stocks catfish in them. Kids might fish it for 3 or 4 hours, and then it's over, and then it's wide open. Most of them, not every single one of them, most of them are open for anybody to go in and fish.
Right.
So it provides some good activity.
Something that you mentioned, Facebook, and Facebook's rolling well. We've got almost 96,000 followers on Facebook, which is awesome. But I just put out some boating classes out there yesterday. There's a lot of boating classes going on this weekend. If you want to get boating safety certified, now's a good time.
And remember, if your child, most of you are a little older, but if your child was born after January 1st, 1989, he or she's got to take a test in order to boat in Tennessee.
Right.
But we recommend that you go take a course.
No matter how old you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just go take a course. And I took it recently, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I took it.
You took it too?
Oh, yeah, we all had to take it.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
And it's not that hard, but it's not that easy. You have to study the manual, at least read it a couple times, and because there are some things on there that I didn't realize, and so you learn from reading the manual. It's
helpful, and it will for us that that buy boats. It will help you with their insurance. I haven't called my insurance company yet, but I'm going to and let them know that I'd like that little discount they give. Right.
That's right.
All right. Anything else going on in the current event world that you can think of?
Current event world. turkey season's winding down. Free fishing day's coming up. I don't think so.
All right, I think we're good.
Fishing is good now.
Fishing is
It's a
good.
good time to be out on the water fishing.
Shellcracker, bluegill,
Right.
largemouth bass.
Correct.
It's
all
all
that's
good.
good. Crappie's kind of winding down, but like you said, the bluegill fishing and the shellcracker fishing is picking up, and largemouth bass fishing is good. Bass are probably off the beds by now, and so it might be a little bit easier to catch.
I think that's going to be fun. I'm going to do some of that shellcracker bluegill action ASAP.
Me too.
It's a lot of fun. Get those kids out right now. But even if you don't get this kid out, that kid out, that kid out, and it's just a lot of fun this time of year. What's a shellcracker, Bobby, versus a bluegill, by the way?
Well, they're both sunfish, but the shellcracker, the real name for it is a red ear sunfish.
Yeah.
And the bluegill, of course, is a bluegill sunfish. There's a lot of different sunfishes in Tennessee, but the shellcracker is one that we, like in ponds and lakes or farm ponds, we recommend stocking along with bluegill. They get a little bit bigger than bluegill.
Mm-hmm.
They look different. Of course, they have that red on their gill flap, probably called red ear.
Okay. And a shell cracker, is it because are they actually shell or mollusks kind of feeders?
They
or?
prefer those. They prefer snails and probably small mussels, but they'll eat crickets and bugs and worms. And
Night
everything.
crawlers.
I learned
Yeah.
something every day. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They're cool fish.
How they got their name there. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and Bobby, we didn't say this at the beginning. Bobby, you said that he was our assistant director, but
yes.
Bobby's also the chief of fisheries for a long time, and assistant before that, and helped run some lakes in Tennessee a long time ago. And
I was
managed
out
lakes.
Lake Graham. That's where you got your start, right?
That's where I started.
We were out there last week shooting some PSAs for boating and stuff.
So yeah, I heard you were down. That's a really beautiful lake.
Yeah, if you've never seen Lake Graham over in Jackson, it is gorgeous. Were you behind the design of that lake when it was?
Actually, it was already designed when I started, but when I started, they were just building the dam. So that's the first thing they do is build the dam. Then they go around the shoreline and create paths through the. They left a lot of the timber standing.
That was going to be my question because most of our state lakes don't have timber standing in it, but Lake
Right.
Graham does. It's gorgeous the way we did it.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things about the lake is that if you seen it years ago, if you had seen it years ago when it was being flooded, or you see that how deep it is and the trees and everything. But of course, the trees have fallen over time, and now it looks like there's just stumps out there that may be a shallow lake, but it's really tall stumps that left over from years and years of when it rotted off at the surface or just above the surface.
The lakes that we have in Tennessee, TWRA probably has close to 20, give or take.
Correct.
Not counting them, but probably close to that. What makes them special? Since you worked on them for a long time, what makes them special to you?
Yeah, they're small, relatively small. I mean, 500 and something acres is our biggest one, but they go all the way down to 22 acres. And we fertilize a lot of them to increase the productivity of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
We stock them every year with catfish at least, and sometimes crappie and other species. And it's a family fishing lake atmosphere thing, so there's no wake speed for the most part, so you can get out there and don't have to worry about in the lake that's skiers and boaters and kind of maybe a lot of wave action. It's peaceful and quiet, and they're only open during daylight hours, but still they're just a good place to go to relax and get away from it all.
Just to fish, but they got a lot of fish in them. I think sometimes
right, they do, and that's the thing we manage for fishing, obviously, and your odds of catching fish are better at an HC lake usually than are out in the public
Yeah,
lake.
don't think that they're over pressurized, or if that's a
Right.
word, but because there's always work to put fish in there and to make sure the ones that are there are doing well.
That's correct.
So, all right, you were at a meeting this week. The fisheries crews, staffs from across the state meet at least once a year, maybe twice. But they had a big meeting this week in McMinnville, and we're talking about the biologist and from across the state. Get in there. I went one day, part of one day, and really thought it was a great meeting where they compare their notes and what they're doing there. What's it all about? What are y'all trying to do?
The main purpose is to get together and discuss potential regulation changes in fishing. And so they do that, but while they're there, they also update each other on what's going on across the state with their particular region, or maybe a research project that's going on, and they talk about things like that and exchange information. And they have special guests. Sometimes they had some folks from TVA to talk about aquatic weeds in the Tennessee Valley, and which was very fascinating.
Yeah, look, I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. Yeah. So, but so they're getting there talking about regulations and what changes might happen. Is this the meeting also where they talk about hatchery and distribution of fish, or is that usually at another meeting?
That's usually another meeting, but they do give a presentation about the status of the hatcheries and things like that. It's just really good stuff.
One of the presentations was by David Roddy. He's the hatchery statewide hatchery coordinator,
Right.
and does a great job. But he was talking about a very new hatchery over in West Tennessee, I think, just for southern or the Florida largemouth or southern largemouth.
Yes, it's actually part of Humboldt Hatchery, which has been there for a long, long time. But the commission allocated some funding for us to build a Florida bass hatchery building. It's completely enclosed. There's no windows. The light is artificial light. We control it, and the water temperature, we control that too. So the idea, of course, being Florida bass typically spawn earlier than the native northern largemouth bass in Tennessee. They may not spawn in Tennessee earlier, but down in Florida, of course, in the warmer weather they do. So what we've done in the past, kind of digressing a little bit, but we've gotten Florida bass fry from other states in the South. And we get them about the middle of April.
Actually flown them in on
Flown them
airplanes,
in, right, from planes and some driven in. You know, we shipped them
Go
in
down
and
there and
things
get
like
them.
that. However we can get them. And so when we put them in a pond for about a month and a half, a local pond at the hatchery, and then we grow them out so that when we stock them, they were probably 2 to 3 weeks older than the native spawn, so they have a size advantage. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Give them a chance not to get eaten by other things.
And not they won't have to compete as much if they're bigger. So,
Okay.
So our idea was let's do it ourselves. Let's try to get those Florida bass brood fish here in Tennessee and get them to spawn about the same time as they do down further south. And that's why we have the artificial light, and that's why we have the water temperature warming up warmer than it would be in a pond or lake.
Jason and I are going to make a trip over there. We
Yes.
talked to David the other day, and we're going to work out a trip, go there and get some video of that. But so we're in the southern bass producing business these days.
Well, we call it Florida bass.
Florida bass,
Yeah, we call
okay.
it Florida bass.
Florida
yeah.
bass. So we're in that producing business these days, and I think the number I saw David say at the end of his presentation was 517,000 got produced last year, but he said that's just half of what we hope to do. Is that correct?
That's
about
correct.
1 million plus?
It's about, I think it's around 900 and something thousand fries. What we hope to get, and then we hope to stock a little bit more, about that much or a little bit less.
Have we standardized where we're going to stock now, Bobby? Is there still some discussion on we're going to do more reservoirs later, or are we going to just stay with what we're stocking now to see what happens?
We're going to stay with what we're stocking now to see what happens, mostly because the numbers, and plus we want to make sure that they do okay there. We don't want to put them in and we find out it's detrimental, and then all of a sudden we go, oh gosh, we shouldn't have put them in every lake in Tennessee. So we're keeping them in. We keep putting them in Kentucky Lake, in Nickajack, of course, Chickamauga, which is we've been stocking since 2000, and then Wattsbar Lake and Fort Loudon Lake. Those are the big bodies of water. And
So it's
some
like
agency
mostly
lakes
Tennessee
too.
River.
All Tennessee River, yeah,
lakes.
right.
Okay.
None in the Cumberland, but all in the Tennessee.
Isn't there a magical line that I've heard? Like it works better.
Yeah.
at
Does
the
that
club
line
or
move a
below.
little bit?
Does that line?
That magical line it's close.
Yeah.
It's actually a heating degree day line that based
Right.
on the number of days, heating degree days in the state, and it goes basically from about Dyersburg all the way down just north of Chattanooga.
Yeah.
You do that line, and so most of those lakes fall in that area. Fort Loudon is a little bit above it. All the other lakes are right in line. I mean, all the other lakes we're stocking are right below that line. So
Okay.
that's a good thing to go by.
Okay, so is that building complete over there, or the addition to Humboldt? Is it complete?
It's almost. I mean, it's pretty much complete. It's like you said, they were able to raise and produce 500 and something thousand fry, which is amazing to me that we got any fry this year. I thought we were going to wait and try to do it next year. So
Guys
we
did
got
a
an
good
early
job.
start this year.
Yeah, and watching that whole presentation that I saw about 5 hours of two and a half days of it, but just in that little bit of time, the work that our guys have to do, the problems that they confront and have to take care of themselves. It's not
That's
like
right.
they can pick up and call the plumber and tell them to ask them to come out. They do it themselves.
They do, and saw some of the pictures of the guys at like in Humboldt Hatchery when they had one of the drain or ponds, or actually it was an intake water.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't working. They had to dig it out and get down in their hole and cut it out themselves and put new piping in just like a plumber would do. It's just what our guys have to do.
I'm not sure about why. There's another one where we had to dive and fix a hole in a
Got
structure.
a spillway structure at Gibson County Lake. There was a big hole, about fist-size hole, so we had to dive down there and put some stuff in there to stop that from leaking. Yeah. Our dive team, our TWRA dive team, took care of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that folks just will never know that happens there, and the kind of work and things that they have to take care of. And then a lot of our hatcheries are getting a little age on them too, and we have to have hatchery managers out there that know how to handle that.
Oh yeah, they're jack of all trades.
Yeah, they are.
They know how to do it all.
For sure. Mm-hmm. What else did you take away from this week's meeting, Bobby? What was the big takeaway?
The amount of research that's going on across the state, the little studies that we do on the side, kind of, and all the sampling that goes on and issues that are can take place, like the invasive species Asian carp, what we're doing about that, and then all the way up to East Tennessee, where they're looking at concerns where the fish that are caught real deep in a wintertime, maybe deeper than 30 feet, fishermen that have ever caught them before, especially smallmouth, sometimes they bring them up, they're bloated, their swim bladders extended, and they think they die because of that. So we did a little research project on that.
I did not know that.
People have talked about fizzing, fizzing fish, and so we did it, and then found out that that fizzed fish didn't do any better or worse than non-fizzed fish. So it won't really hurt them, but it doesn't really help them either. So that was kind of a neat project.
I didn't know about that project. Where was it? Where did it take place?
South Holston Lake, up in the far upper east.
So what do you tell fishermen then when they get a bloated fish? Leave it alone?
I think we're going to try to tell them the correct way to fizz one, because they say sometimes people try to fizz them through the mouth, and they actually are not fizzing the swim bladder, they're fizzing the gut, the stomach.
Oh, boy.
Pokes out. And sometimes they damage the gills too when they do that. So they're going from the side of the fish. I can't explain it here, but there's a proper way to do that.
But in fizzing, you're literally trying to put a little hole in the air bladder to make it go back down.
Right, stick a needle into the tiny little hole in the air bladder so it'll go back down so the fish can swim down.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so fishermen got their heart's in the right place.
Heart's in the right place.
Sometimes the fizz might not be.
Correct. Yeah, their heart is in the right place, definitely. They want the fish to live, and they're just trying to do the right thing.
Okay. All right. What about fish in Tennessee? We talked a few years ago when you were chief that you felt like Tennessee had probably reached a point where we didn't need a whole lot of regulation changes at that time. Are we still at that point, Bobby, or do you see things?
Well, apparently we're there, because there were not many recommendations that came out of that meeting. I've never seen a fisheries meeting where we had so few recommendations.
No fist fights or nothing.
There were no statewide recommendations. There were just a few adjustments here and there for some of the regional, local places. And, there's never a fist fight.
I'm kidding.
Fish fight, but never a fist fight.
Right, fish fight. Yeah, great guys. I got to spend some time with Michael Clark. Not very long, but I'm going to get him in here. But he was talking to me about the Asian carp going on, the dive occurring on Barkley and Kentucky lakes, and really still a mystery as to what happened over there. What do you think?
I think the latest theory is that with the early warm spells that we had back in January and February, where normally it's cold, and of course fish are cold-blooded, and so their metabolism is related to that. So normally they're not as active. They're just kind of, they swim around, but they're not real active in the cold months. But it was so warm that they were swimming around because it, increased their activity. But the food wasn't there, the plankton. That's what they feed on, and it wasn't much plankton. So they, instead of coming out of the winter with fat reserves and everything, they had no fat reserves at all, and made them susceptible to these bacterial infections and things like that normally they would be able to resist.
Makes sense to me.
Well, that's kind of what the going theory is. So.
But then the thing that doesn't make sense to me is, why were they all this big? Why weren't they all this big?
I don't know. Bigger ones may have had a bigger fat reserve. I don't know.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
So can we bottle whatever it is?
That'd be great. We were all hoping that's a specific disease just for silver carp, but we don't think that's the case yet. We hadn't figured that out, or they haven't figured it out yet, but I don't think it is.
Okay. And is there just a brief update on where we are with Asian carp? Is there a developing market in Tennessee, one that you feel comfortable yet? And by the way, Asian carp do taste good.
They do. Really good.
Yep.
Yeah, tastes as good as crappie. Now, I said that. Most people will say you're crazy, but they're really
not far. Yeah.
They're not bad. They're really good.
A little different texture.
They're mild tasting. Yeah, a little different texture, but they're mild tasting. So whatever batter you put on them is how they're going to taste. There's a little bit more of a development market now than there was probably 6 months ago. There's a processing ship that made its way from Alaska all the way to the very northwest tip of Tennessee, an area called Kate's Landing or Kate's Harbor, and up north at Tiptonville around Reelfoot Lake, and they're there specifically to process Asian carp, and they're going to do all the processing on board. It's a salmon processing ship that they retrofitted to make it for Asian carp. So they're going to be, once they get set up, they're going to be hiring folks to go out and catch fish and bring it back and pay them, and hopefully we'll see the results of that. They're already doing. They have a couple of processing plants up in Kentucky, and it's just not feasible for Tennessee folks to drive all the way to Kentucky, so this will be a lot better.
And even I was thinking about that. If you're on Kentucky Lake, is there a distribution? Will there be some kind of distribution created? Because that's still a pretty good drive.
Still a good
Lake
drive
to Tiptonville.
So one of the other things that we're looking at, Representative Tim Wergel from the Henry County area, Paris area, is trying to he's behind that. He's the chairman of what it still is the advisory committee, Asian Carp Advisory Committee, that was established by the legislature last year. And so one of the things that we're trying to do as a recommendation is to maybe build I don't know, offloading station or a storage building or something where people can bring their fish to, a commercial fisherman can bring their Asian carp to. They're held there until a truck can come pick them up and ice them down and that kind of thing. So trying to help them out, facilitate that a little bit.
For the person who'd like to try an Asian carp, and they're hard to catch on rod and reel because they're plankton eaters, and so it's unless you snag them or
they jump in a boat.
Or they jump in the boat, or you shoot them with archery equipment, or all that. Can we now go buy? Can you actually go to a market somewhere? Is it legal to buy them in Tennessee?
Oh yeah, it's legal. That you can't possess Asian carp live. That's illegal. That's a federal law. Okay. But yeah, they sell them in a lot of fish markets. Not in some place like Kroger's yet, but places that are just they sell commercial fish.
Would they be marketed? Are they marketed as fish? Do they say silver carp? Do they say big head carp? Do they say carp? Do you know?
I think it depends on where you go. Up in Kentucky, there's a better market for them up there, and they sell them as silver fin.
Silver fin.
I think they call them silver fin, and it's pretty expensive. I mean, for an invasive species we're trying to get rid of, it's like $4.99 a pound, but it's good stuff.
It's really good, and the ones that I've seen eating, I know your crews have been frying some so we could all see what they're like and talk about it, but they were all chunked up, very filleted, and I understand they're difficult to clean, so they're all chunked up and filleted really nicely.
Right. The bigger ones are a little bit easier to clean. It's like the back strap off of the fillet off of a fish. You can get a pretty good strip off the top, and then you get down into some bones, it gets a little tougher.
Okay, I'll give it a try, everybody.
They've made, there's one processing facility up there in Wickliffe, Kentucky, that makes hot dogs out of them, and they don't taste like fish. They just taste like hot dogs, but they're made with the fish.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pot stickers and salmon croquettes and all kinds of cool ways that they're, and meatballs are making food out of Asian carp.
How, what have you been, 30 years or so at TWRA?
Yeah, or so.
Well, I'm at it or so myself. What is it? Is it the number one invasive? Before the show started, we were talking about one of the talks was on invasive hydrilla coming down here, which sounds scary to me. But on the scale to 1 to Asian carp, where does it fit in? What's the scariest?
Well, the Asian carp is the scariest. I mean, the most concerned. I think.
Concerning,
yeah,
right?
We don't see an impact to our native species or commercial species, anything yet. And the numbers are there. Most people, when they see a pod of them, like in Kentucky Lake, they travel in groups, and they'll see a bunch of them jump up, and they think the whole lake is covered with them. But it's just a pod, and not that we're not concerned about it. We're lucky that it's not any worse than that yet. But so what we want to try to do is manage those Asian carp at the level we're at now. We'll never get rid of them, we don't think, but we'll at least manage them to a level by commercial harvesting them down to that level. But the hydrilla is a concern, but it depends on who you talk to. But the fishermen love it. But as I mentioned to you, that the hydrilla that's appearing now in our waters is not the same hydrilla that we've experienced over the last 40 years. Probably.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, and that would be worth an entire show in and of itself. But in a nutshell, you were telling me that we have a hydrilla that came up from the south that produces some pretty good fish habitat, but it's not native, and it comes with its issues.
Right.
But we got one coming from the north that's like a brick.
It's thick. There's not a lot of, there's no room for fish to migrate in and out underneath the water.
So
Whereas there is with the old hydrilla.
So it just covers a lot of water and takes up
Covers
space.
water, covers space, takes up space, and fish can't
Do
get
you
in.
remember what it was called?
Well, hydrilla, there's two. One of them's called the dioecious,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it came up from the south. And that's what's been here forever, and it's being out competed by the kind that came from the north, and it's called the monoecious. It's just a botany term that they use to describe it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll do more on that, but in terms of being a threat, you wouldn't put it in Asian.
No, I wouldn't put it there. It only grows in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the wintertime it'll go away, but it grows back.
Okay.
So it's not like year round.
What happened to the zebra mussel? And is it still in Tennessee? And do we still worry about it like we did 20 years ago?
Well, in areas that it's always what it's been in for probably the last 25 years or so, in Kentucky Lake and places like that, it's not that bad. It's there, but it's not taking over, and it probably never will. Mostly because of the conditions of the water temperature's warmer, and they have a lot of predators that like
Shellcrackers. Yeah.
and drum and blue catfish. They all eat small mussels and things like that. So they seem to control it or control itself by the water temperature. But up in the upper east, Melton Hill, and they're in Norris Lake, and supposedly in Cherokee Lake, and those are lakes that you can't get to with a barge or lock through the dam. They came in from somebody's boat at one point in time.
Which is why Jason has spent so much time working on PSAs to tell folks not to.
Yes.
To make sure you clean your boat.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Those PSAs were excellent. And they got a lot of rave reviews by the fisheries guys, by the way.
And Michael
Neal,
who finished really well
Professional
in
angler,
a tournament the other day, finished second, by the way. Congratulations to him in a big tournament.
Yep.
So that's
he's
cool. It's
become a major spokesman for that program and trying to get the news out on the nuisance and the invasive species.
And it is important. And Bobby, before we talk, I want to talk about shoreline. I want to talk about bank angling in a minute. But do you know the question I've been asking for a long time? Where do shellcrackers go after May? I can find them in May, but where do they go after May? Bluegill still hang out. They're still there, but
they disappear with the crappie. I think
they're gone.
Yeah,
but I can't. I'm finding crappie trolling. I can't find a shellcracker.
They just haphazard. They're not concentrated like
they're
they
not
are
concentrated
when they're spawning. Yeah.
Okay, so they're out there eating shells on the bottom or whatever they do in deeper water.
Yep, and getting bigger.
So that I can't catch them.
Because you can't catch them. That's why they're getting bigger.
All right. Hey, I saw some good presentations on bank angling too, where our guys over in West Tennessee had some creative ways of I think it was Carroll Lake. Carroll Lake's been down, I guess, and doing some work, some shoreline habitat work that was really cool. Is bank angling across the state with our guys pretty important toward? Is there a lot of management doing?
Oh yeah, people can. We try our best because sometimes it's hard to get access to bank angling, and of course the person in the boat can put it in a ramp and go wherever he wants to, but person on the bank it's sometimes hard to find. So we do a lot of we try our best to get bank access and maybe fishing piers and things like that, and all in waters across the state.
And there's a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of them. And another number that came out, not bank angling, but just on Percy Priest, one of the presentations was there's 130 stake beds on Percy Priest, which is a great lake here in Middle Tennessee.
Right.
But that's repeated all across. Now that's not necessarily bank stuff, but it's still habitat that we're putting out there, and it's across the state.
Right, and finding better ways to do it.
Marked ways. Yeah.
You see the presentation. We're driving stakes in with hammers and hurting our shoulders, and then we have this stake driver that you hurt your head with and shoulders with, and now they came up with a very, very neat way of doing it with a impact gun sort of, and just put real light like a drill, and then it's got a fitting that we made to put on top of those, and we just
another thing
air hammer it down, pop, 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 and it just drives down with no effort from us at all. No physical effort.
That's just another way the guys, the biologists and the technicians out there just always coming up with stuff.
Always.
I will say this: the biggest fish I've ever caught was off the bank, off a little dock there on Percy Priest. Yeah,
Percy Priest Lake.
So I mean, it can be done. I mean, 6 pound largemouth.
Nearly a pound and a half, or what was it?
No, it was 6 pounds.
Oh, 6
it was
pounds.
6
Okay.
pounds. Yeah.
Okay.
I got pictures to prove it.
Okay, sure you do. That's a good fish.
See what I have to deal with.
All right. Bobby, you're always a great guest for somebody who came in here without an agenda. And we didn't really have topics.
I just talked.
You just kept it covered.
Hey, one
Always
thing.
interesting.
We talked about the new regs on page 4 of the fishing guide.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
The
yes.
updates to the new the new regulation changes are on page 4. So.
Right.
All right. Come back with us soon.
I'll be glad to.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Enjoyed
Thanks,
it a
Jason.
lot. All right, Jason, take it away.
Hey, you can watch this show at tnwildlife.org. You can watch and listen right there. All the past shows are out there. And keep following our Facebook, social medias.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank y'all.